tonight on KGW News. Emergency call overload.
Whenever these things are going on, I'm getting phone calls and hearing from the chief, getting updates.
Portland police are sent to several shootings and traffic crashes in a 13-hour stretch. The staffing challenges they're facing that are making matters worse.
Plus, rescue in the gorge. How a man was able to get someone to spot him more than 1,000 feet below where he was stranded. And later,
the hatred, bigotry is still alive and it's still a part of our community.
A synagogue hit by vandals. The message they have for whoever wrote these hateful words. Your news starts now.
And we begin tonight with breaking news and protests on the steps of the U.S. Supreme Court. These scenes erupting in Washington, D.C. after Politico published what it said was an authenticated draft of a majority court decision that indicates the court plans to overturn Roe v. Wade. That, of course, is the landmark 1973 ruling that protected abortion nationally.
NBC News has not independently verified the draft, which dates back to February and is not final. Still, the scope of the potential impact here, propelling dozens and some reports say up to 200 people, mostly pro-choice, to rally outside the court. We will keep you updated as we learn more with the latest on Sunrise and on KGW.com. Thank you for joining us. I'm Laurel Porter.
And I'm David Molko. Our other top story tonight, threats and fire damage at a Northwest Portland synagogue. Some of it so disturbing and potentially triggering that we have chosen not to show you most of these images.
Catherine Cook spoke with the rabbi of Congregation Beth Israel and has his powerful message.
If the hatred, the bigotry is still alive and it's still a part of our community.
On Monday morning, staff members from Congregation Beth Israel found this at their synagogue in Northwest Portland. Burn marks from small fires set in front of their building. There was also graffiti, a painful anti-Semitic threat that cut deep for senior rabbi Michael Z. Kahana.
The phrase was Die Juden, a reference to Nazi Germans and the idea of Jews as being worthy only of death.
Kahana believes the yellow paint was a reference to the yellow star badges Nazis forced Jews to wear during the Holocaust. Even the timing, he says, is significant. Wednesday was Holocaust Remembrance Day.
And then just a few days later to have these very hateful words written on the wall of our sanctuary really hit home.
Kahana says they reported the threat to police. They also notified the FBI and the Anti-Defamation League. Last year, that organization tracked 2,717 anti-Semitic incidents nationwide, the most on record since they started tracking them in 1979, and a 34% jump from the year before.
We are not feeling like we're in any kind of danger. But we also take it very seriously.
Kahana says above all, he wants to expose what happened, not hide it from the public. A moment to own their right to gather and worship in their synagogue, despite those who believe otherwise.
It's an incredibly painful reminder of the history of white supremacy here in our state.
Rabbi Kahana says they've dealt with arson and other fires at their synagogue before, but what sets this apart is the evidence linking it to anti-Semitism. Anyone with information on this case is asked to call Portland Police. Laurel.
Well, we hope they catch those responsible. Thank you, Catherine. Now we have an update on a hiker who was stranded at Monroe Point in the gorge by Bonneville Dam. Rescuers have reached a 51-year-old man, and he was able to walk down with them. He was stuck at the top of a steep, rocky cliffside 2,000 feet up. The 4.5-mile out and back trail is exposed to the elements and is not maintained. Also, it's been closed since the Eagle Creek fire in 2017. Rescuers had to use GPS to navigate their way up. A worker at Bonneville Dam spotted the hiker because he made a signal fire. The hiker also had the early stages of hypothermia and lost his hiking boots. It took over 3 hours to get him down, but we're glad that he is safe.
Another story we're following closely tonight, a hectic weekend for the Portland Police Bureau, which is already stretched thin. So add to that the impact of a number of crashes and shootings. all within a matter of hours. Now, officers were so busy that less serious calls for service did not get the attention they deserved.
Our Mike Benner spoke to the president of the police union. He says this whole thing may get worse before it gets better.
To say the men and women of the Portland Police Bureau were busy this weekend would be an understatement. For proof, look no further than a 13-hour stretch from Friday evening to early Saturday morning. Officers responded to 5 shootings and 3 serious traffic crashes.
Whenever these things are going on, I'm getting phone calls and hearing from the chief, getting updates.
Sergeant Aaron Schmautz is the president of the Portland Police Association. He's well aware the heavy call load over the weekend stretched the Bureau thin. Officers could only respond to high-priority calls. This means that people calling 911 to report a theft, runaway, or missing person, for example, aren't getting a police response.
You're talking about just your everyday Portland citizen who's experiencing an emergency, experiencing something that is very important in their life. And that may be the only time that they call the police. And that, for me, is the most heartbreaking thing.
And unfortunately, Schmautz says it could get worse before it gets better. KGW has learned of more than 100 vacancies at the Police Bureau, and that number could jump in July, when anywhere between 40 and 60 sworn members of the Bureau will be eligible to retire.
The reality is that without enough robust staffing, if you experience a critical emergency, it's going to take longer for people to respond. And that just simply is unacceptable.
Schmautz says the Bureau has no choice but to lean on community organizations that in the past have offered to help law enforcement with public safety.
I just think we need to continue to have honest conversations about what our needs are, where we can best work together.
In Portland, Mike Benner for KGW News.
Well, let's talk natural gas tonight because Northwest Natural customers are in for bigger bills come November 1st. The utility has proposed a rate hike, and now advocates for residential customers are pushing back. Alma McCarty joins us in the newsroom. Alma, the company says it serves 2.5 million people across our region, and this is really far from a done deal so far.
David, it can be complex. When a utility company wants to increase its rates, they go before the Public Utility Commission, explaining why customers should pay more. Sometimes those rate increases are justified. You want systems to work for everyone all the time, and they need upgrades and improvements to run smoothly. But sometimes advocates for customers, like Oregon Citizens Utility Board, fight back. Here's Bob Jenks, the executive director.
We have economists and experts that go in and look at this case. We get to ask for data and information from the company. We looked at sort of all the company surveys. We did look at the advertising. We can look at sort of anything that they're asking customers to pay for and say, is this appropriate or not?
Jenks explains their argument against a rate hike has to be evidence-based. They can't just say, we don't like this, we don't want it. In this particular case, Northwest Natural is asking the Public Utility Commission for a total 11% increase. The average customer would see a monthly increase of $7.42. The utility says it's modernizing its IT systems, relocating regional resource centers to be seismically secure, and improving its natural gas distribution system, its pipelines. The Oregon Citizens Utility Board takes issue with some of the requests here, such as increasing shareholder benefits and increasing advertising and promotion of their brand. Jenks says the proposed increase might not seem like a lot on the surface, but it can quickly add up.
It's primarily about heating your house in the winter. So most of your gas costs go between November and February. So in those months, you're not going to get a $7 increase. You're going to get a $15 or $20 increase because it's coming on a $150 or $200 bill.
So what comes next? Rounds of more evidence and testimony and the potential for a lower rate hike than what was initially proposed. The Oregon Utility Commission ultimately decides, so we'll know for certain in October. David?
All right. Thank you, Alma, for that.
We have a reminder, we are about 2 weeks away from Oregon's primary election on May 17th. And here are some important dates to keep in mind.
Yeah, the date to register or update your voter registration, well, that has already passed, and most voters should have already received their ballots. Absentee or replacement ballots, those will be mailed out by May 12th. Reminder for your vote to count, return your ballots at any official drop box or make sure they are postmarked, not dropped off, but postmarked no later than 8 p.m. on May 17th.
Also happening tomorrow, David and I are moderating KGW's Republican gubernatorial debate in partnership with the City Club of Portland. We'll be streaming it live on KGW.com and on your KGW app, and we'll be bringing you highlights on our newscast throughout the week here on KGW.
Looking forward to that.
Sure am. We'll still